What's going on, nerds? My name is Jesse, and we are back again with another Two Guys Review This Movie, and we are continuing our Harry Potter series doing Chamber of Secrets, which came out in 2002 and directed by Christopher Columbus. This is his second Harry Potter film and also his last. How do you take it, Justin, out of 10? Go.
I've definitely got to put it as probably like a 7, maybe even a high 6. It's just one of those films where, as a standalone film, it does not hold its own weight. But as a story progression film, it's really good for developing plot.
Yeah, I think it's the weakest of the Harry Potter films. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. I really liked it when I was a kid, but being a little bit older and seeing the rest of the Harry Potter films, it's definitely the weakest. And I also want to say when we get to Prisoner of Azkaban, I think that's really when the movie stepped up from being kind of kids films into like low teens, and then they get darker as they go along.
I can definitely see. I can definitely see where you get that from. That makes a lot of sense to me. It's just one of those things where when you look at the film, you really want to look at it as its own film and not just as a series holder. And that's where it kind of falls flat. But when you look at it as someone who has read the novels and is looking to see how far into the series you can go, it really tells a great story and helps push the narrative of what Harry Potter is about.
Yeah, I still think there's a lot of good scenes in this film. For me, the first one and this one run together all the time. I don't know if that's because they're directed by the same guy and they have a similar feel, or because the first two books are a little bit similar. Some things happen and then at the end there's a battle. It's kind of similar plot structure the first two books, so maybe that's why they run together. But there's a couple of great scenes in here. I think the flying car scene is a lot of fun, not being able to take the platform 9 3/4. What do you think?
I think it's really cool, and we get introduced to Dobby. I mean, one of my favorite characters throughout
Dobby,
the series. I feel like in this film, it was a step up from. I always call this Harry Potter 2.0. Like, this is definitely what Christopher Columbus was trying to push the series towards, and then you kind of see him leave and the story really mature. But if he had continued on, this was definitely a filler and a builder series movie. So that way you could see a lot of strengths come out. That kind of fell off in the third film due to a new director.
Yeah, I think one of Christopher Columbus's weaknesses is story building or universe building. He's such a slave to adapting the books and trying to get the absolute word for word what's going on in the books into the movies, and it just doesn't translate as well sometimes. So there's a couple of things in the film that maybe should have been cut out or shortened or changed a little bit, whereas he really struggles with adaptation, I would say.
I can definitely see where that comes from. And when you watch if you ever watched all of the films in a row, which I know a lot of people haven't, but just in a similar time frame, 1 and 2 feel like they're together. They should just be one super long movie. Whereas 3 just completely changes everything it's about.
Yeah.
That it's definitely a different feel, having a different set of director and different set of eyes look at how the film should be made.
Yeah, and we'll talk some more about that when we get Prisoner of Azkaban, because Alfonso Cuarón is such a visionary director, and to give him a Harry Potter movie was probably a risk in some sense, because the movies he had done before are so stylish and so different than a Harry Potter film. But we'll talk about that when we get there. The rest of this is going to be spoiler from here on out. The introduction to Dobby, that's got to be one of the most iconic scenes in Harry Potter, right?
No, absolutely. Dobby the house elf.
Dobby. Yeah, and then he drops the cake on the Dursleys. We all love to see some Dursleys get it in the face, right?
Absolutely. And then it was really nice to see that when you first watch the film, you're not really sure what's going on and why Dobby's doing these things. It's really interesting to see if there are problems that can occur for Harry in a normal lifetime outside of Hogwarts that you didn't really think about. And that there's magical powers that can happen that you wouldn't really expect, like this, like a house elf coming and taking care of problems like this.
Right, and this is our first introduction to house elves and how they are the slaves of the Wizarding universe, and it's another way of J.K. Rowling showing you that the Wizarding world is more old-fashioned than the Muggle world, and that's like a theme throughout Harry Potter. And having slavery is one of those things that is something that you would think is super old-fashioned, and yet it still exists in the Wizarding world.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And looking at how they portray these differences. I mean, Muggle studies and whatnot, and trying to learn about that. And I believe it's stated in the first one. What is the use of a rubber ducky?
Yeah,
It's just it really shows the differences between them, and I feel like this secondary film shows a lot more in detail of that.
Yeah, I also would like to shout out the performances, especially Emma Watson and Daniel Radcliffe. I feel like they stepped it up a lot from the first film, especially Emma Watson. I think Hermione's performance is a lot better in the second film, and it gets better as she goes, as she's kind of finding who she is as an actress and finding the character. I think she does a lot of good stuff in this film.
I really agree, and I definitely think that Daniel Radcliffe deserves a lot of credit, like you said as well, because he grows a lot in this film. I mean, one of the most iconic scenes is actually towards the end, where that famous scene at the very end of the film when Lucian Malfoy
Lucius,
is leaving. Yeah, he's leaving Dumbledore's office, and Harry gives him the sock. Yeah. Where he speaks to Harry, I forget what he says, but it's totally unscripted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Harry replies back, unscripted, I'll be here.
Yeah, I think he says that, well, thank goodness that the Harry Potter was here to save the day, or something like that. And he says, I always will be. And that's like a really strong moment. I remember seeing that in the BBC special. I really thought that was pretty cool to have a improv moment like that. It's pretty awesome.
I definitely agree. And then there was great CGI effects in this film, going through the spiders and through the basilisk. I think this is just a great film in general for building plot lines and narratives into the story. But it's just tough to have all of these different things going through the film that really don't stand well together on their own.
Yeah, I think he does a good thing hitting the major plot points in the film. The CGI basilisk is also practical effect. It's blended. They actually made a huge model of the basilisk, and they were doing CGI as well. I think the spiders look really good. The flying car is awesome. I actually really like the flying car scene, seeing Rupert Grint's face in the car as they realize the train's behind them. That's a good laugh. I mean, there's lots of good whimsical stuff in this film.
No, I definitely agree there. And then it also really helps to speak about just how locked away magic is compared to the Muggle world, where they get in so much trouble for driving the magical car just because there's a possibility that Muggles saw them. Like, they're trying so hard to not be known as wizards and to keep the wizarding world and the human world separated, which they don't speak much about in the first film. I believe this is the first time they really touch bases on it.
Yeah, there's some really good stuff in here. I really like the spider scene. I think, being introduced to young Tom Riddle in the diary, I think that's a really good plot string, and I think it's depicted well in the film, especially giving Ginny the diary in the cauldron where Lucius Malfoy gives it to her, and Diagon Alley. That's pretty awesome as well. I think that's a cool plot, and I think it's shown well. Like, you get to see it, you see him put it in there, and then later on you realize that he put it in there, and it's right there in front of you the whole time. I love it when a mystery is shown to you, and if you picked it up, that's awesome. If you didn't pick it up, you're going to pick it up later at the end of the film.
I agree. Be careful, man. If you say Diagonal, you might end up in the wrong place.
I know, right? Well, what do you think about the diary plotline?
I think that it's really strong, and it actually brings up a lot of it showcases a lot of points that became later like really hot topics and theories throughout the Harry Potter community. I mean, the famous theory that Dumbledore was a Legilimens, just like what is her name from Fantastic Beasts? Queenie, yes, she's a Legilimens, and there's a rumor now that Dumbledore was possibly one because of the way he looks at Tom Riddle on the stairs when he asks Tom if he needs to say something to him.
Yeah,
like you can tell there's definite doubt.
I haven't heard that one before. I thought that was kind of just implied that he was an old man. He's got good feel for when kids are lying and stuff. I always thought that was what that scene portrayed, and also it mirrors Harry because he asked Harry the same question.
I definitely understand that. It was just something really cool that really caught my mind, made me think back to this film when I heard it. And I think that it's great acting from Richard Harris, first and foremost, which, rest in peace, Richard Harris. I think he really played Dumbledore well. And I don't think he would have played it any better in the later films, but he definitely did the first films well.
Yeah. I think for what he was given in the films, he plays that well, but having to do the things that Dumbledore has to do in the later films, I'm not sure if he would have been capable of conveying the energy and feeling that Michael Gambon portrays. So I like both Dumbledores, and I don't mind it. It's not a big deal.
I definitely understand that.
This also is one of the first retcons that J.K. Rowling goes through, and that's the diary becoming a Horcrux, because it's technically, maybe it is a Horcrux, maybe she had it planned out the whole time. But to me, this is a retcon where later on she goes, okay, well, we already had one Horcrux. There was a diary, and it was taken out by the Basilisk Tooth, and now you go, okay, wait, now Basilisk Tooth can take out Horcruxes, right? And it's just one big retcon. I don't mind it, but it is one of the things that happens later on in the story and gives more connectivity to from the beginning of the series to the end of the series, because in the 7th or 8th movie, we're going back to the 2nd movie where we already took out a Horcrux.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of forced, where they go back and the basilisk skeleton is still there years later.
Nobody's ever been in the Chamber of Secrets again. It hasn't been demolished. It hasn't been cleaned up. Ron speaks Parseltongue for some reason.
Oh, we will talk about that. Don't worry.
We will. We'll get there. But for now, we're staying on Chamber of Secrets. I think the Tom Riddle tricking Harry Potter into thinking that Rubeus is the one who opened up the chamber because he's into magical creatures, and really it was the big spider who Newt Scamander might have been the guy who gave him the spider, which is a big theory going around right now.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good theory. But we'll
yeah,
talk
I think
about
that's
that.
very, very likely that happened.
We'll have to talk about that more in Prisoner of Azkaban. I believe it'd be Prisoner of Azkaban, where he gets the map.
Yeah, the Marauders map, and
Marauders
you see him
map.
on the Marauders map. Yeah.
Yes, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, I like having that, but unfortunately, it means that Newt Scamander is completely safe in all of the future movies because you can't kill him because he's in the Harry Potter movies, So that's always a thing that bums me about prequels. If they make it to the sequels, then there's no danger that they're ever gonna die,
I hear you, but I mean, in the age where we have all these Star Wars films, all these different films where everyone's just dying, I'd rather have it this way. Yeah. I'd like to have a little bit of hope.
Well, let's talk about the spider scene. I know it freaked me out when I was a kid. What do you think about having a shit ton of CGI spiders and the autonomous car saves them?
I did not feel good about it. I mean, I hate spiders. And watching as a kid, watching that spider grab Harry from the back.
Yes.
It's a reboot. Yes. No,
yes.
Ron. Grab Ron from the back.
Ron, yeah, he takes Ron from the back and Harry saves him.
Can't watch that scene. Couldn't watch it as a kid. Fuck that.
Yeah, same. Not a fan, but it is great CGI, and it is as creepy as there is creepy things in the Harry Potter universe. A big ass spider is one of those. I'm not a big fan of the autonomous car showing up out of nowhere to save the owner. That's kind of always something that's bothered me about Chamber of Secrets, but that's okay. We had to get out of there one way or another. I would actually find a way to kind of cut down on the spider scene in general. Find a way to where they don't have to go all the way into the spider's den, because it's just a big chunk of movie that's there just to tell you that Rubeus is innocent, when we all know Rubeus is innocent because he's Rubeus Hagrid. He didn't open up the Chamber of Secrets and kill people,
I feel like it's another retcon scene from, I believe it'd be Half-Blood Prince, when they go and they bury the spider at the end. It's not at the end, but yes, the Half-Blood Prince, where Harry takes the potion of luck to go to the funeral with Hagrid and with the professor.
Yeah, but why was the spider killed? I don't remember.
No, the spider died of old age.
That's right. Okay, yeah, I remember now. And then
that felt very retcon just to bring him back like that, but still, I feel like it was good tying up of loose ends.
Yeah, I think J.K. Rowling does a good job of tying up loose ends, even though there is some plot holes in the Harry Potter universe. There's not that many. They're far and few between. Moving into the last act of the film, we take Professor Lockhart down there, and he shows us his skill, which is memory spells, and it rebounds on him, which is an overall pretty funny scene. And then we go in to fight the Basilisk, right?
Yeah, and overall in this film, everything just kind of feels like they tried to bring darker tones to this film, but it's still very much lighthearted in nature.
Yeah, super light. The only things that are scary in this film are the spiders and the Basilisk, and yes, the Basilisk is very, very scary. But there is a couple of good things that are in this film, especially having Ginny be the one who's taken by young Tom Riddle instead of Ron or Hermione. Kind of sets up their kind of love story towards the end of the films, right?
I agree, and I think it's played really well. And then, of course, the Lockhart scene brought up the theory that maybe he's actually the greatest of all time, and he just wiped our memories for it.
Right, we'll never know now. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really like the last scene of the film where we get Fox coming in, Fox the Phoenix, to poke out his eyes, and there's lots of good score in there. And Harry's kind of going down the sewer tunnels and trying to avoid it. There's that real tense scene where he's like hidden in there, and then the snake comes up to him in the face, and he's trying to find him, and he has to be really quiet. That's always a real tense scene.
No, I think it's a great scene, and I feel like they played Fox really well with how Fox first they show him the regeneration and his healing. They talked about with Dumbledore. It all ties back together. Yeah, I feel like that was handled really well.
The Sword of Gryffindor, pulling the Sword of Gryffindor out of the hat.
I think that's also really cool, and I think that it really tells a lot once again going later in the film. And there's a lot of things that could be said to be retcon for later, but I feel like this one was it was actually meant to be originally, with how they talked about the Sword of Gryffindor and how it shows up later towards the Deathly Hallows.
Yeah, Sword of Gryffindor kind of shows up in Deathly Hallows, which is like a really awesome moment, seeing Neville pulling the Sword of Gryffindor out of the hat. That was awesome. The reveal that Tom Marvolo Riddle is also Lord Voldemort, that was really cool. I actually really liked the way they did that with him writing his name in the air with the wand. I thought that was really cool.
I definitely agree. Going into that final fight scene as well, I think it was really cool to see that moment of weakness come from Harry when Harry actually gets hit by the basilisk, its fang. It was really great acting on Harry's part, on Daniel Radcliffe's part. And yeah, I think that was really cool to see, to show that young child really handle that role well.
Yeah, I think Daniel Radcliffe really improves throughout the movies. The first one, he's okay. The second one, he's pretty good. And then from there on out, he really is Harry Potter 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I don't think we have much more to say about Chamber of Secrets. It is one of the, it is the weakest of the Harry Potter films, and we'll be going more in on Alfonso Cuarón's masterpiece, also known as The Prisoner of Azkaban, next week or maybe the week after, depending on what we do. Don't forget that we post these every Tuesday from now on. Justin, you got any closing thoughts?
No, I think that's it.
All right, guys, if you're liking this series, please let us know. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. Links in the description below, as always, and we will catch you guys on the flip side. Later.
Later.